It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Six to time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Monday. It's also April 1st. Or is it a Monday? Because it's April 1st, so you can go around messing with people all day long. It's your right.
Today's show is sponsored by the original cell phone hairbrush. Talk about looking good.
Yeah, always wanted one of those. I have no idea why we would even... Anyway.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. So yesterday was Easter Sunday, and it's very different than it was a while ago. Actually, most people don't even celebrate Easter. They don't care. It's just another Sunday. And we only really take Sunday off. Most people is because it's just traditional to take Sunday off. So I say that because the number of people who go to church has dropped dramatically, not just in America, but across the world, so over time. So Easter is another one of those days where, it's a holiday, but it's not as big as a deal as it used to be. Still, though, keeping that in mind, one should just keep in mind that it is a holiday to some people. It's a very important holiday to some people. And somebody should have told the White House that and the president that. And so a memo was put out, or some kind of, what do you call these, executive orders or whatever, a proclamation, that's the word I'm looking for, a proclamation by the White House and the president that read, "Now, therefore, I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., I didn't know Jr. was part of his name." Okay, well, he's a junior. "President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2024 as Transgender Day of Visibility. I call upon all Americans to join us in lifting up their lives and voices of transgender people throughout the nation, and look forward to eliminating violence and discrimination." Okay, fine, you want to do that. It was Easter. And so this got a lot of people mad. Why are you doing this on Easter? Could you have done it Saturday? Why Easter? So, okay, the White House ends up, huge backlash. They end up pulling it back. And let's see, James Lindsay writes, "I have a feeling this is going to be really bad for me, but it has to be said. The dynamic must be explained. Yesterday on Good Friday, one of the holiest days of the Christian faith, Biden administration proclaimed Easter Sunday, specifically the Transgender Day of Visibility." Okay, did you want to do this on a different day, perhaps? Well, okay, there was a huge backlash. And people called him, the president and the administration, insensitive during that time. Well, okay, and some people even posting things like insane. Did you actually do that? Was this real? Well, yeah, they decided to proclaim Easter that. Also, there was a problem where kids show up to the White House. I'm glad they did the egg roll, because PETA wanted a potato roll. PETA hates the idea that they're out there rolling eggs. Don't roll eggs, says people. Well, I know. People eating tasty animals, but you know who they are. Don't roll eggs, they said. Roll potatoes instead. Well, that didn't happen. They rolled egg, which is a tradition. But kids were supposed to grab their crayons or whatever and do some kind of artwork to have it on display and see who would win the artwork contest. Sounds good, right? But anything that was very religious, which is what Easter is, they were told, yeah, don't submit that. They were actually asked to not submit something overly religious. Well, okay, curious. But what is Easter supposed to be? I mean, we're not just out there watching a bunny hop around and picking up eggs and so. What is Easter actually supposed to be? Okay, so some kid, in order to enter the picture contest, drew something that was religious. Well, I mean, pardon me, but duh. Isn't that the point of this whole thing? Kind of like with Christmas. I remember a time where, and this is some time, but when I was a kid, everybody was saying Merry Xmas. I mean, when they would write it, Merry Xmas. How about Christmas? I mean, what exactly is the holiday supposed to be? So why are we doing? So there was a big push to, could you put the Christ back in Christmas, please? Make Merry Christmas? How about that? Because that's what the holiday's supposed to be anyway. Not everything else that we've wrapped it up into, diluting it. So, okay. For those people who are upset by all of this, as much as my point of all of it is, as much as the Biden administration talks about being sensitive to other people, my thought is, could you at least be sensitive toward people who celebrate Christmas and Easter as a religious holiday? Maybe be sensitive toward them? Oh, yeah, Miss Mary, yeah. I forgot to leave you a note about your phone. Yeah, also, she says Easter is truly the least secular holiday. All I'm saying is if the president wanted to put out some proclamation on transgender reveal or whatever day that was supposed to be, if that's what you want to do, Mr. President, you go right ahead. You go, fine. Could you not do it on Easter? There were all sorts of other days you could have picked. So for the president who claims to be sensitive about quite a few things, I would say that was a very insensitive move. Now, he did, well, I don't know if he did it. He was probably napping most of Sunday. But it was backtracked a little bit by the end of the day because of the anger and the backlash because of that. Well, all right. So that was Easter, according to the White House. Now, something I came across this weekend, and it reminds me of a commercial that I did, a fake commercial, a long time ago. You know when you're watching a commercial for some medication, and they start listing the side effects? Yeah.
Hey, you should take our new prescription medication. Side effects may include sneezing, wheezing, labor, breathing, trouble speaking, eating, sleeping, hemorrhages, internal bleeding, feeling short of breath, nausea, dry mouth, cough and fever, blockages of the ureter, choking, bloating, tremors, seizures, coma, stroke, or death, mood swings, muscle aches, weight gain, fugue states, osteoporosis, sudden psychosis, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, masochism, vampirism, sudden necromanticism, phantom limbs, fanaticism, chronic deja vu, transient telepathy, changes in your destiny, ancient forms of leprosy, a loosening of screws.
Everybody, it's time for your Daybreak Egg Report. I'm Russell Nemitz, and thanks for being with us here on the Western Egg Network. Well, I sure hope everyone had a blessed Easter weekend and that you were able to spend it with your family and friends. And before we jump into our egg news here on this Monday morning, we also want to welcome on board some brand new affiliates to our Western Egg Network team. KNYN in Evanston, Wyoming, serving southwest Wyoming and northeast Utah, along with KBRV in Soda Springs and KACH in Preston, Idaho, which serve most of eastern Idaho and northern Utah. Welcome on board. Well, the USDA is investing up to $22 million in partnerships that expand access to conservation technical assistance for livestock producers and increase the use of conservation practices on grazing lands. That's because the NRCS is now accepting proposals through its Grazing Lands Conservation Initiative until May 26. NRCS Chief Terry Cosby says that privately owned grazing lands cover nearly 30% of our national landscape, which means this is another tremendous opportunity to help address climate change and conserve natural resources through voluntary and private lands conservation.
One of the key things here is we've never had this opportunity at NRCS with the amount of dollars that we have right now. Through the Inflation Reduction Act that President Biden was able to sign into law, it made another $20 billion available for conservation. And along with the Farm Bill and the bipartisan infrastructure law, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for NRCS, and we need to take advantage of it.
Now, through GLCI, the NRCS will use partnerships to help increase technical assistance for producers engaged in grazing activities. For more information about NRCS's grazing lands efforts, either visit your local USDA service center or jump online at the NRCS website. Stay with us. We'll have more ag news right after this.
Sale season's here again, and there are a lot of black-hided Angus bulls on the market, but not all of them are registered. Why take the risk? Don't gamble on unproven genetics. Invest wisely with registered, powered by Angus bulls. Backed by the power of the American Angus Association and 80 million data points, registered Angus bulls give you the confidence in your buying decisions. Don't buy an imposter. Look for the registration number. Buy the power. Buy registered Angus bulls.
Cattlemen at Hinman Angus, they do one thing Angus. Tuesday, April 2nd, 175 registered Angus bulls sell at the ranch near Malta, Montana. At Hinman Angus, they strive for perfection in their cow herd while also delivering weaning and feedlot performance. As Dave says, these bulls will keep you in the cow business. Sale time is 1 o'clock Tuesday, April 2nd. Also broadcast online at bidsuperiorlivestock.com. Call 406-654-1809 or view bull videos at hinmanangus.com. Well, according to AgriPulse, the International Trade Commission has begun an investigation into whether low-priced imports of 2,4-D are causing material injury to the U.S. manufacturer of the product, Corteva Agriscience. Now, in their petition to the ITC, Corteva said that China and India have increased exports of their herbicide to the U.S. while at the same time dropping their prices. They said that shipments from the two countries made up 81% of all the imports of 2,4-D into the United States in 2023 alone. For the Western Ag Network, I'm Russell Nemitz.
Matthew.
Huh? Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I just need you to listen to me.
I know that a lot of times, Mom, it might not seem like I'm listening to you, but I am. I hear you. And what you say really does matter to me.
I mean, let's be honest. No kid likes rules, but I get why we have them. I hear you, and I know it's because you care.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me. And believe it or not, they really do make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for talking and preparing me for what's ahead.
Thanks, Mom, for never giving up and always being my biggest fan.
Thank you for letting me know what you expect, so I can try to meet your expectations.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Fuel lines are often broken during heavy storms and flooding, and highly explosive vapors may still be present in many buildings. Plus, explosive gases such as methane may accumulate from decaying materials. Open all windows when you enter a building. If you smell gas or hear gas escaping, don't smoke, light matches, operate electrical switches, or use telephones, including cell phones. Leave immediately. From the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Where Wyoming comes to talk. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS.
6:21's the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So, okay, with the proclamation that the president put out on Easter, which I just looked at as insensitive, do that some other day. Say, Jim and Casper, I proclaim today to be Joe Biden Day. That makes sense since it's April 1st. That's okay. Track also in Casper. The president is a little confused. He meant to proclaim April 1st as that day. Well, if he's going to issue, I said Saturday. You're saying April 1st. And then David, who's in Graybull, said April Fool's Day would have been more appropriate. So I think you're all pretty much on the same page on that one. Now, long as I was starting off with that, this one kind of caught my attention. At first, I wasn't going to put this story in my little stack of stuff. Then I thought, I kind of have to. So some years ago, I'm watching a comedian, and I thought, oh, okay. Since I was talking about Easter, right? He said he was in church on Easter Sunday, and he's looking up behind the minister. There's a big depiction there of Jesus on the cross. And the comedian is looking at this depiction of Jesus on the cross and thinking, nice abs. He's got like a really good six-pack going there. Really, it makes sense. He's a carpenter. He works really hard. You ever look at Buddha? Yeah, sloppy. No. So I thought, okay, kind of a fun joke there. Okay. Then I come across this. Many decades later, I come across this. A study finds, why is Jesus often depicted with a six-pack? The muscular Messiah reflects how Christians value masculinity, it says. Well, I look at that and think, or maybe it's just because he was employed as a carpenter's son, but also as a carpenter himself. So the story says, have you ever wondered why so many images depicting the crucifixion of Jesus it has a very defined, slender body, either slim, but maybe with a six-pack, displaying muscles and brawn, while images are hardly the reflection of what little can be surmised about the historical figure, certainly reflecting social and cultural ideas about masculinity. I think the writer here, first off, has too much time on their hands, or, and this is, I think, the bigger possibility, ran out of things to write about a long time ago. So now this person's writing about this. But then also assuming, well, it's just masculinity. Or maybe they're just depicting someone who worked hard for a living. But okay, reading on. In many images of the crucifixion, Jesus is depicted both as strong and vulnerable. Paintings show a muscular Messiah, suggesting Jesus could perhaps physically have overcome his fate if he wanted to. No, there is no such suggestion. At this point, I have to wonder, who's the idiot writing this? There is no such suggestion. This interpretation of the crucifixion story amplifies the emotional and spiritual strength of the sacrifice. Oh, God. Okay, I'm going to go with this writer. Let me get the name of the writer here. Let's see, study finds, region. No, it's just a group called The Conversation. Whoever is writing this had nothing to write about, so this is what they came up with. The Bible is full of strong men and pumped prophets working the land. Abraham's punishment for eating from the tree of knowledge. Noah builds a massive ark, filling it with every animal. Samson has superhuman strength. The book of Judges, his only weakness is women. The opening of Matthew's gospel, Jesus in detail, and it's clear that, well, he has hard DNA. It speaks of Abraham and David, it says, particularly in Genesis 14, we learn how Abraham gathered an army of 300 men and launched an attack to save his family. It goes on and on like this by all these people. And whenever you see paintings of them, wow, they really have great physiques, don't they? Okay, the story goes on and on and on like this, and I am probably the only person who's ever read this story, even especially that far in. What do you want to bet? Now, the reason, if you're wondering how did I find it, there's a website that I subscribe to called Study Finds, and the website goes out looking for interesting or unusual studies that have been done and post them. So if you wonder where I get some of the dumbest studies you've ever read, it's from that website called Study Finds. But this makes me wonder, who was it? Think about it. They're getting paid for this. They're sitting at work, which might be from home these days, but they're sitting at work, and they realize they have to come up with another article. And somehow their mind drifts off to how Jesus had a nice physique, according to all of the paintings of him and statues made of him. They really give him a nice physique. And so this person begins to postulate, and this thing goes on for about 6 pages. If I were to print it out, it would be about 6 pages long. So what I want to know, if I were the person who employed this writer, do they still have a job? And why was it ever put out there in the first place? And certainly, I mean, I know there's a lot of garbage on the internet, but certainly somebody could have come up with something better than that to write about. If I were the editor of that online post, I would have handed it back and told them, by deadline, I expect you to have something legit. Not this, because you're really making us look bad. I mean, honestly. But this is the kind of stuff that gets put out there these days. And just so you know, no, I don't waste all my time reading it. Rhiannon Fort Danger, at least that article doesn't rant about, the chromosomes. Yeah, that's true too. Well, there's a lot of idiotic questions around things of faith. I mean, just idiotic questions, but that's why I don't spend a whole lot of my time even trying to think about it. All right, coming up on some local business that we have to take care of, there's going to be news time. Right after news, update on your weather forecast. And then you and I get back into it. Now, you'll want to pay attention to that extended forecast, especially, because some nice weather comes, but then there's a huge change-up. So Don Day's extended forecast is at 6:45. I'll have him on live at 7:45 to lay it out for us. Wake Up Wyoming.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Got something to say? Chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app or call 888-97-WOODS.
6:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Monday. For some people out there, it's kind of slick roads on the cold side. Listen to that extended forecast at 6:45 because a lot of change up happening over the day. It's springtime, so the weather's a bit schizophrenic. All right. No special session in the Wyoming legislature. They did not have enough votes to call for a special session. Story from Cowboy State Daily says the vote was close, but there won't be a special session in the Wyoming legislature anytime in the foreseeable future. Sunday night, the Legislative Service Office reported to the legislative members that the vote was 50-43. Members of the legislature rejected a proposal to call for a special session to override some of Governor Mark Gordon's recently vetoed bills. The Senate side was 16-15 in support of a special session. The House side was 35-27. So not quite enough. All right, so vote was officially closed about 5 p.m. on Sunday. They started on Wednesday, went through to Sunday in order to make sure to get a hold of everybody. And then the story goes on to why there was a special session and there's a whole lot that they talk about, but it really comes down to, the governor's veto stands until they get into the next session of the legislature. Part of the reason why for the no vote for some is a special session is expensive. Now, we don't pay our members of the legislative body anything but a per diem. They get money to stay somewhere, meal money, gas money, stuff like that. But they don't make a living at me, which I think we should do for Congress in Washington, D.C. But okay. But you also have to call back the Legislative Service Office. There's all sorts of employees that have to be called back in. And that can get expensive. Also, they couldn't narrow down what the session would specifically be about. The leaders of the House and Senate wanted it to be a one-issue special session where the governor vetoed one of the tax relief proposals. You're still going to get several property tax relief proposals through, but there was one in particular he vetoed, and that's what leadership wanted to come back on. Not anything else. But other people wanted to come back on many other issues, many other vetoes. And there's where the disagreement came in. How far are we going to go here? How long does this last? Does this become another complete session? So we end up with 2 legislative sessions this year. That was some of the worries. So for that sake, the people who voted against it, they said that's why they voted against it. They just didn't want to take it that far. So we'll have to wait to override the governor's vetoes until the next legislative session, which he could veto those again. The way, because time has passed, if they offer up those bills again and pass them again, the governor could veto them again. So this time they should stay and wait until he's signed or not signed everything to figure out what they're going to do. All right, so there's where we're at right now. I was in Cheyenne over the weekend. I did stop in to see Secretary of State Chuck Gray while I was there. The governor wasn't in. And talk with a couple of other people about the possibility of a legislative session. At the time, most people thought it was going to happen, and so did I. There were so many out there thought that this was a done deal. We're going to end up with another legislative session, but we have to take the vote. And you can see by the numbers that I called out, that was really close. We almost did have a special session. To me, one of the reasons for having one is there were some very important things that the governor vetoed, but also the number of things that the governor vetoed. I would have to go back and check, but it seemed like he vetoed quite a bit. So to override that, I would have preferred that your House and Senate had stayed around just a bit longer to make sure all business was done before they came back. And then, because this way, if the governor vetoes something, as you saw, they're already gone. So it's probably a better idea to hang out to make sure the governor passes or vetoes, whatever the case is. I'm not sure all of how that works. I've talked to various members of the House and Senate who have different opinions as to how that works, but that's what I would prefer to see. Maybe give the governor a deadline to sign or not sign things, so the House and Senate have the opportunity to relax. Okay, your weather forecast. It is April. That means squirrely weather. That means if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. You experienced that this weekend. Okay, you're about to experience it again. Although the week actually starts off really nice, it's all about to change up again. Don Day explains in his extended...
Live and local, all across Wyoming. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Join in at 888-97-WOODS or the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app.
6:48 is the time. Wake Up Wyoming off to the... Hang on, wrong one. That one, Icebox We Go. Frank Amito is waiting by. So it is April 1st, Frank.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So
and the weather is just perfect April here.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
In Wyoming,
yeah.
You know, because if you want to look what spring really looks like, it's not here.
No. The weather is schizophrenic, Frank.
No. Wyoming doesn't have a spring.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It lasts about 2 weeks.
Well, you're giving it a whole 2 weeks. Wow.
Sometimes 10 days.
Okay, something like that. All right. So at some point today, deliver for me a completely bogus sports report.
Yeah, the bogus sports report.
Yeah, but
the Wyoming Cowboy basketball team is just as good as everybody who's in the Final Four.
But I'm saying, don't tell me which one it is because I wouldn't know the difference. Okay, I got something really cool for you. That this is only in Wyoming, and people can see this on the Wake Up Wyoming website. So as I head down to Cheyenne, I always have to stop and visit my friends in Chugwater. And as I walk in and I'm talking to them, and there's the front counter of the business there at the Tri-County Mercantile. And there's, a little jar of nail clippers. You can just reach in and grab some nail clippers out of a jar, right? Want some chapstick?
It's in the jar.
No, right next to the nail clippers is a row of chapsticks. And right next to that is a box, a rectangular box, just cardboard. 9mm bullets, buy one, 30 cents each, basically. So grab a fistful if you want.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
That's the simple way to do it.
That's sure. Now, any other state would freak out, but this is Wyoming.
No, it's
very typical.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. The reason when you go to a bar and ask for a shot, it's said, is that if a cowboy didn't have any cash on him, he could put a bullet down, a shot, and get a small little drink.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or so the story goes. So I'm looking at this box thinking, oh, yeah, there was that story about where a shot comes from. But where else have you ever seen, this is the only time I've ever seen, that while at the register and thinking, oh, while I'm here, let me get some chapstick and let me get about 3 9mm, 30 cents each.
You know, I hope like outlaws who are on the road on I-25 trying to get away from the cops, like, hey, we're out of ammo, but if we stop in this little town, we'll be able to get some.
Well, in the story that I wrote up, I thought if you were just outside and you had to kill something or somebody, and now you're minus 1 or 2 rounds in your gun,
well,
just saunter on into the store.
It's 30 cents a piece?
30 cents a piece? Now, that's cheap, Frank.
Oh, that's really cheap. In women's college basketball, the Wyoming Cowgirls back in action in the WNIT round of 8 tonight. They will host Minnesota in Laramie. Cowgirls are 18-14 on the year, and they drilled South Dakota on Friday in the round of 16, 84-52. And UW led 24-13 after 1 quarter of play. They were led in scoring by Allison Furdy with 24 points and 11 rebounds. Douglas High School grad was 11-14 from the field, and UW as a whole had 5 players in double figures. Minnesota comes into tonight's game with a record of 18-15, but they were a brutal 5-13 in Big Ten conference play. Gophers have beaten Pacific and North Dakota State so far in the WNIT, and tonight's game begins at 6:30 at the Arena Auditorium in Laramie. Women's junior college basketball, the national championship game will be tonight at the Ford Center in Casper as Hutchinson, Kansas will take on Northwest Florida State from Niceville. Hutch is 36-0. They're the number 1 seed in the tournament, and Northwest Florida State is the number 3 seed and the defending national champions with a record of 30-3. It is a 6 p.m. start tonight from the Ford Center. At the men's NCAA basketball tournament, raise your hand if you had Connecticut, Purdue, Alabama, and North Carolina State in your bracket in the Final Four. Well, back on Saturday, defending national champion UConn boat raced Illinois 77-52 with a 30-0 run in the game. Alabama on Saturday qualified for the Final Four for the very first time, beating Clemson 89-82. On Sunday, Purdue at number 1 seed got by Tennessee a 2 seed, 77-66. Purdue was a number 1 seed last year and lost in the first round to the number 16 seed, which was thoroughly embarrassing. This year, they were tough thanks to 7'4" Zach Edey, who had 40 points, and outdueled Tennessee big man Dalton Neck, who had 37. Neck, by the way, played 2 years at Northern Colorado and Greeley and 2 years at Northeastern Junior College in Sterling, Colorado. North Carolina State makes the Final Four for the first time since 1983, beating Duke 76-64. NC State was an 11 seed. They played a combined 9 straight elimination games, counting the ACC and NCAA tournaments, and won all 9. So the Wolfpack will play Purdue on Saturday in the Final Four, which will be in Glendale, Arizona, and Alabama will take on UConn in the other national semifinal game on Saturday, and the national championship will be on Monday. Major League Baseball, the Colorado Rockies started out the season 1-3 after a 5-1 loss to Arizona yesterday. The Rockies made 3 errors in that game that led to 2 unearned runs. Colorado is scheduled to play in Chicago against the Cubs today, but that game will probably be postponed due to the weather there. That's it in sports.
Well, good that it's postponed because
then they don't lose. Yeah,
they don't lose. That's
it's almost getting quickly to the point down the road that they may be a waste of breath.
Well, maybe, but that
we're done with them.
It just means it's cheaper to get in every time.
Yeah, but if they play like this for the rest, like by July, I don't really care what they do anymore.
That's okay. No, I think you do, Frank, because it gives you something to complain about, and we all know you like that.
Well,
okay,
true.
That's okay. Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business that we have to roll into, and we're going to get into news time, national local update on the weather forecast. Then you and I get back into it again. 7:45, I do have Don Day on live, and we'll go through this week's weather, which again starts Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. Really nice, but then it's Wake Up Wyoming. 7:06 the time. It's a Monday morning. A little icy out there for a lot of people, but dawn days on 7:45 with an extended forecast, which promises most of the week to be really nice, and then we pay for it. He'll explain to it at 7:45. It is April 1st, so this is April Fool's Day. Okay, just so you know. I'm just warning you, especially if you're someone who likes doing social media, but I'm just warning you. You got it? Okay, with me on that? All right, fine. Have fun with it. For me, it's only a good joke if the person that you've just pranked is laughing at the same time you are. That's just my thought. But other than that, just be careful out there is all I'm saying.
Today's show is sponsored by the original cell phone hairbrush. Talk about looking good.
The next story, or I should say the first story for this hour that I have up, has to do with the trucking industry and the EPA. Oh, that combination's never good.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave. Just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. EPA has been working hard to try to regulate you right out of your internal combustion engine and into an electric vehicle. Backdoor ways, since they can't directly just ban the internal combustion engine. Even some states and cities that are trying to ban the internal combustion engine can really only go so far on that ban. They can't actually totally ban it, although they want to. So the push is on just to regulate them out of existence. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to stand for this. Over the weekend, I watched several and read several articles about how the electric vehicle industry is struggling. I mean, I've already reported that to you, but it's getting worse. It really is. Sales are not improving. Fewer and fewer people want these things, especially people who have purchased one. A lot of them want to get out of electric vehicle. So here comes the EPA and the trucking industry. All right, story number one that I have. The Environmental Protection Agency has taken further steps in its effort to reduce emissions from vehicles, this time focusing on heavy-duty trucks. Following the recent implementation of new tailpipe emission standards for light and medium-duty vehicles, the EPA has now extended its regulations to target the largest polluters on the nation's roadways, as they say it. Quote, in finalizing these emission standards for heavy-duty vehicles, like trucks and buses, the EPA is significantly cutting pollution from the hardest-working vehicles on the road, said the EPA administrator. Building on recently finalized rules for light and medium-duty vehicles, EPA strong and durable vehicle standards respond to the urgency of the climate crisis by making deep cuts in emissions from the transportation sector. So you can see how much is wrong with that right there. The idea of the climate crisis, first off. But then, to me, there's a lot, but to me, the idea that, once again, the EPA is writing law. This isn't going through Congress. This isn't going through your elected officials. It's the EPA writing law, which has to be reversed, but okay. Quote, 1 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions avoided by these standards is equivalent to the emissions from more than 13 million tanker trucks worth of gasoline, said the Biden administration. So while it isn't an outright electric vehicle mandate, the new regulations progressively restrict the amount of pollution permissible, and even things that they call pollution that are not, like CO2. And, of course, the trucking industry is outraged by this. The story says the impact of these regulations will extend to various larger vehicles, tractor trailers, ambulances, RVs, garbage trucks, school buses. The EPA estimates that these measures could result in a substantial shift with potentially 25% of all long-haul trucks and 40% of medium-sized trucks. Here again, will be zero emissions. These are not zero emissions vehicles. Every time I see that, I'm going to correct it. They're not zero emissions vehicle. You could say it's zero emissions at the source, at the vehicle itself, but you still have to create emissions in order to charge them. And if you think, well, we're just going to go all wind and solar, not possible when you actually run those numbers. But all right, federal government has said that come 2055, this plan could help create $13 billion in annual net benefits to society. Now, once again, even though this has been costing us a lot of money, they keep trying to sell it, but it's going to make us money. Like when they tried to sell Obamacare, the Unaffordable Care Act, the idea was, well, this is going to save us $1 trillion. No, it's going to cost us several $1 trillion, not save us. Like when the president recently bragged during the State of the Union address that he cut $1 trillion from the budget. No, he spent nearly $14 trillion. So once again, well, if we do these EPA standards, then it's going to save us all of this. It's not going to. No, it's going to end up it already is costing us. All right, so another story, another source, almost Orwellian. Feds black out nearly all emails about trucker surveillance proposals. What? A Department of Transportation component slammed the brakes on, the story says, following I like the way they put the puns in, semi-furious opposition for its proposal for on-demand law enforcement surveillance of commercial vehicles about a year and a half ago. So it took another 6 months to turn over the records by a FOIA lawsuit, and then most of it was just redacted. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration had internal conversations about those public comments over several months, including via email. At the same time, it was stalling for a Freedom of Information Act about exactly what it was doing. And when it did arrive, they blanked out about 30 pages for deliberative process privilege. Wow. Who came up with that one? Well, we have to block these out. We have to black out all of these sentences and paragraphs for deliberative process privilege. A redaction notation that appears more than 500 times. 500 times. And also attorney-client privilege and so on. FBI went even further into this past week, refusing to turn over further records for the notorious mobsters case file in response to a Boston Herald FOIA request. But going back to the truckers here. So they wanted surveillance on truckers. When we finally get the FOIA request, most of it is blacked out. Ladies and gentlemen, your federal government.
Men, beware. Use one dab of Brill Cream. Just a little dab makes your hair look excitingly clean, disturbingly healthy. This man dared to use 2 dabs. Now he's in trouble. We refuse to be responsible.
Brill Cream, a little dab will do ya. Or watch out, the gals will all pursue ya.
And we're back. Sorry, we were busy tricking pescatarians into eating Rocky Mountain oysters. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
7:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. What I'm talking about right now is the Environmental Protection Agency trying to push rules on truck drivers, semi-trucks I'm specifically talking about. And they say, well, get this done by such and such a date, and we'll start increasing how many electric trucks are out there. Okay, another story for you. Biden administration on Friday released final emission rules. Now, once again, laws written without Congress, which is not the way we're supposed to be doing this. To force the nation, here we go, and there again, to force the nation, your government's not supposed to be forcing anybody. That's not what we're supposed to be about. For the nation's fleet of heavy-duty vehicles and buses and semi-trucks to begin going electric by 2027. The regulations, which are laws written without your elected officials, come on the heels of the EPA's wanting to phase out 67% of gasoline-powered passenger cars by 2032. Now, here again, it's not for your EPA to phase out electric or the internal combustion engine. If you want to drive that, you drive that. That's your business. The policy is part of the Biden administration's ambition to grow green energy, fight climate change, et cetera, et cetera. And it talks about the difference between the vehicles and when they intend to get this done by. Under the proposed rules, laws written without elected officials, last year, EPA said 25% of new semi-trucks or similar vehicles would need to be some sort of electric by 2032. This, in part, as one example, reminds me of during the Obama administration. Obama wanted to pass something called net neutrality for the internet and basically regulate the hell out of the internet. Couldn't get Congress to pass anything. So instead, the FCC declared that the internet was a utility. Well, they don't have the power to do that, but they did it. And now, since it's a utility, it can be regulated. Laws written without your elected officials. So they start at the FCC writing the regulations. Now, Congress was objecting to this, but they couldn't seem to get it together to put a stop to it, which should be easy. So when Trump got in office, one of the first things he did was, as commander-in-chief, but also as chief executive, he can just go ahead and sign an executive order and put a stop to it, which he did. Which really upset people who wanted net neutrality, but what Trump said to him is, if you want this, you have to go through Congress. You actually have to take this idea you have for net neutrality and go through Congress. Well, somebody did write it up as a law, a bill, and tried to introduce it several times over, and nobody wanted anything to do with it. But that's the way the process is supposed to work. So, first off, your government is not supposed to be forcing you anything. If you want to drive the internal combustion engine, do it. If you like electric vehicles, your choice. They're also trying to ease you in because electric vehicles, all electric, are not doing so well. Well, how about hybrid then? Well, how about you mind your own business, stay out of ours? How about that? Just let the free market decide how it wants to play this. But, no. The current government that we have, and it's not just this president, the bureaucracy would prefer to force you to live it their way and not give you a say, even though you're supposed to be a free person in a free country. Now, I've played this before, but it needs to be played again. Why we can't go all electric trucks.
Just so we're clear on the scale of the issue, each electric vehicle battery for a heavy-duty truck weighs 8,000 pounds, and you need at least two of them. So we're talking the weight of, 4 or 5 cars. And my friends and peers in the industry nationwide who have tried to make efforts to put in, say, hey, I'm going to convert a dozen forklifts to electric, or I want to tee up a facility for 30 electric trucks. There's no power. The utilities come back, the cities come back and say, is this some kind of joke? One friend tried to put in Illinois a facility, tee it up for 30 trucks electrification. The city came back and said, this is some kind of joke. You're asking for more draw than the entire city requires. And just to give you an idea, 30, 50 trucks, that's like a 5-6 megawatt application. The factory that makes the trucks is a 2 megawatt factory.
So they still try to say that this is zero emissions and good for the environment. They still try to convince you of this. So here, once again, is the big push towards something that they haven't run the numbers on. That's another problem that I have with all of this is, could you guys properly run the numbers? How about actually take a look to see if this is viable or not? Now, hearings are held in Congress on Capitol Hill where experts in the trucking industry are brought in to explain what you just heard and a whole lot more. But, of course, people who want to go all electric are living in some kind of a pipe dream, and they don't want to listen to these so-called experts. They don't even try to listen to what experts are supposed to be. They won't. And by experts, I don't mean somebody who's sitting in academia coming up with some theories on something, or some bureaucrat who's coming up with theories, or politicians who typically don't know what they're talking about. I mean, people who are actually in the trucking industry who have to deal with this every single day. It really doesn't help with the news media, by the way. As I was looking for different stories on this, I came across one, just the headline alone. When it came to pickup trucks, people love these electric pickup trucks, but here's why they're not selling well. Well, there are a few people out there who purchase them, although they're a bit disappointed. People don't tend to love these vehicles once they get into them. The concept as sold to them, they seem to love the sound of it, but once they start to drive around them, it just simply doesn't work. So the idea, well, I could go on about the idea of how this is not going to be better for the environment. But in this case, I'd rather stick with, is it really the role of your government in our country to tell you, or a business, you have to drive this kind of vehicle? We're going to tell you what you can drive and what you're not allowed to drive. Because we have a certain goal here, we have a certain agenda, and so we're going to make sure that you do what we tell you to do. Is that the kind of country we live in? Or are we supposed to, and I think you know the answer here, live in the kind of country where you get to make your own decisions? And so if somebody wants to convince you to change your ways, they can certainly come along and try to convince you. That's their right, and you can choose to listen to them and take their advice, or not. I think one thing that, to me, more than anything else, with the whole climate agenda of the Biden administration, the idea that they can just go ahead and write these mandates without the approval of Congress and then just force them on us. To me, there's a lot wrong with what's going on. To me, that's a big part of what's going on, that they're going to write all of these rules and regulations and force them on us, whether we like it or not. That's not what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be a republic, in which case government doesn't order us around. They don't tell us what to do. They don't provide for us. That's not what a republic is. Coming up on 7:30, local news coming your way. Judy, I see you there. Judy in the trucking business. She's going to have to blow off some steam about this when we come back from local news, update on your weather forecast. Judy, and then Don Day's on with us with a regional weather forecast, because as I said, we start this month, it actually is going to get really nice out there for a while. Then it's not. But how much it's not is still up for grabs. We'll talk to Don Day about that at 7:45. Wake up, Wyoming.
Donda.
It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio. Join the show at 888-97-WOODS.
7:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, since I got done talking about truckers, means, of course, we got to hear from someone who's got one or two of those and runs it as a business. Hey, Jude.
Hey, we got about 5 of them. But anyway, okay, the average truck empty with a trailer on it is 10,000 pounds.
Right.
Okay, they say that we're going to need 3 to 6 batteries for just backup, like for lights and all of that kind of stuff, because the one big battery is for just running the engine. Okay, now a quarter of the truck is taken up with battery. So who do I tell I can't bring fuel to? Do I tell that to two of my customers and say, oh, well, the other guys are more important?
Right.
So you'll just have to wait. Because my driver's going to be down for 8 hours after he runs this load, because that's the mandate that passed without Congress.
Right.
About driving mandatory hours of service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Instead of, it's going to double the time, double the wait time for my customers, double the expenditures. harder on the highways because they're really, really heavy. And, they're going to tear up the roads, going to tear up tires like crazy. And our tires are kind of junky right now because they're coming out of China. It's going to cost me more in wages, and it's going to cost me more in insurance because have one of my trucks hit somebody in a car, God forbid, everybody's dead, not just the car, but the driver too, because we've seen these things burn. Well, I talked to a fella that is a fire department guy. Oh, God, I can't remember. One of my little things that I go to. And he said that they can't even use water on that to put it out. They have to use the foam. Well, the foam has been coming up as a cancer carcinogen. So that's not really an answer, but it'll kill everybody involved because it burns so hot, so fast, that nobody has a chance to get out of the way. Okay, now let's go back to the mandates that never were passed by Congress when they came up with the hours of service, electronic logs, and all of that. It's going to put me out of business is what it's going to do.
Yeah. Well, and
because I've absorbed as much as I possibly can already.
How much, I haven't looked yet, does one of these new electric trucks cost that they want to get you into?
I was going to look that up before I called them, but I ran out of time.
Okay.
But I wanted that out there to begin. Oh, and not to mention, here's a good one, the law on being heavy. You know how many people get cited for over, what do they call it? You're over your limit.
Right.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
People aren't going to be able to be under the limit with just the battery and two of their people's loads to go somewhere.
Right.
So it's going to cut down on transportation of any items going across the United States.
Right. Let's talk, another term is what's your useful load? Because there's a way to the truck, there's how much you're allowed to put onto the highway, which means the heavier the truck is, the less you're allowed to haul, which of course impacts how much money you can make, and you're already running a thin margin as it is.
Yep, exactly. Okay. And it's not getting any better. I mean, think about it with all that extra weight, those tires. How much pressure is going to be on those tires?
Right.
How much pressure is going to be on our roads? Our roads are going to look like pothole city. These guys are not thinking, Glenn.
No, they're not. And what gets me is when I do read something that comes out of the EPA, they like to try to sell this as not only is this going to be great for the environment, but gosh, it's going to create all of these jobs and make us so much money. It doesn't ever work out that way, but they keep pushing that idea.
Well, I think we've all learned by now they lie.
Yeah.
Anything that has to do with government right now is a liar. The EPA, the IRS, DOJ, the FBI, all of them. It's like that bridge. To me, that doesn't look like it was an accident.
Oh, that was I don't. For a moment, you're not going to convince me that was intentional. No, I don't think that was. I think that was a complete accident, and we'll find out when they get into the black box. But the point of it is, though, you have a government. We have a government that's pushing something on you as an owner of a business. They're pushing something on you as a government mandate, which even with Congress, they're not supposed to do.
And I went to Barrasso about this when the mandates were forced from committee on, not even going on the floor, and were passed. And I showed him, me and Paul Pad showed him how this was going to affect the trucking industry. We are short 86,000 drivers right now. Can you imagine what happens when this goes down?
Right. All right, Judy.
If you don't have a pantry full of food, I feel sorry for you, dude, because you're going to be stuck.
All right. Thank you, Jude. Appreciate it. So there's someone who runs a small trucking company here in Wyoming, giving you an idea of what she's up against. 7:42 is the time.
Sure, this show is sustainable. We sequester all gas emissions to one room. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, live on AM 1030 and FM 95.1, weekdays at 6.
7:45 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to talk to Don Day from Day Weather. It's slick out there, Don.
depending on where you are, yes. Some areas
okay.
are slick, some areas are dry, some areas are wet.
Okay. Anybody just got a big, white pile of snow?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, this was a storm that it was a storm that almost was a big storm, but didn't quite all come together. So we got a variety of conditions. But we talked last week about how they really needed some moisture up in the northeast counties of the state, and they got some. We've got a lot of reports of a half to 3/4 of an inch of moisture out of the storm in the form of rain and snow across those northeast counties, the far eastern counties near that South Dakota, Nebraska border. So it actually turned out pretty good, really. No one really got clobbered, but a lot of folks picked up some needed spring moisture.
Okay, now as we go more east, though, I think there are some people getting clobbered. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we're going to see more wet snow falling across South Dakota today. We're going to see severe weather in the Midwest, the southern plains, as you get down into parts of eastern Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, those areas. This system will trigger a lot of severe weather there.
Okay. Now, it does look like as we get into this week, we are teased. I'm going to call it a tease with spring.
Oh, it is totally a tease, without a doubt. I mean, the weather beginning tomorrow. Today is still going to be a chilly, unsettled day. There's going to still be some lingering showers around. Temperatures aren't going to be really that warm. But beginning tomorrow, temperatures start to go up. High pressure starts to get in. And from Tuesday through Friday, boy, I mean, especially Wednesday and Thursday, if you don't have spring fever by Wednesday or Thursday, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
it will likely be running rampant. Problem is that we are staring down another potential storm this weekend. I think it's going to be a bigger, more intense system that we've got to keep a close eye on.
Okay, that sounds like you're hedging your bets a little bit. Does it get organized or does it not?
Well, this one has the chance of getting organized. This last one didn't. It was just stretched out. It was almost a big one, but didn't quite come together. This one shows signs that it might. So we're several days away.
Okay.
But when we're this far out, we paint with a big broad brush.
I understand.
Broad brush is this. Yeah. After 4 days of really nice spring weather, it could be wintry again very quickly by Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, so we might not be talking rain event or ice event, but maybe something white.
There is, the better organized systems get this time of year, the better the chance they draw in that colder air.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. So, all right, get out there, enjoy it while you can, I think is probably the moral of that story there. So off we go to the icebox. Frank Gambino is waiting by. I came across a story, Frank, from Cowboy State Daily. I always loved the idea that Chuck Yeager.
Yeah, he was in Casper.
Yes, he was. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when they had their military base out of the airport. Yeah.
Yep. So here's the headline. That time Chuck Yeager hunted Wyoming antelope from a fighter plane.
Okay. It gave him something to do.
Well,
he wasn't breaking
speed
speed records.
During his short time, that happened later. During a short time in Wyoming, Casper Air Base, part of the 357th Fighter Group, a young Chuck Yeager did the wrong stuff just prior to the attack. So he's out here. He's learning how to fly the plane. On another occasion, he armed a machine gun with his plane and brought down several antelope from the air. So he strafed them.
And Game and Fish said what to him?
Yeah,
Did Game and Fish even exist then?
I was about to ask that. Was there even a Game and Fish? Did he bother to go out there and pick them up and bring them in?
Yeah.
So, I mean, at least make some food or something out of that.
Is there a game warden say, hey?
Yes, not allowed to do that.
What the hell are you doing up there?
He said years later, Wyoming was great hunting.
I'm sure
the ranges were full because of the war. Nobody was hunting. And so the herds were getting really big.
And he had to harvest.
Yes. Let me see. Base chow was not as good as venison.
No, of course.
Okay.
Well, really?
Okay. So he and his buddy took carbines and they did shoot. Now, it also talks about times that he actually did legit hunting and went out there and killed some and brought it back. So everybody had something that basically wasn't army food. That I understand.
Sounds good, but you can't strafe them from the air.
No, you really can't do. Well, apparently, I'm thinking he did, but didn't talk about it until years later when nobody was really going to do anything about it. And now I'm curious, since he was flying around in this area, Frank, Where did he do this exactly? I got to dig into the story.
Probably right around the airport. He didn't have to go very far.
I would think probably not because, they're just all over the place out there. So, but he also has a point. The war was on, and a lot of young men were out fighting the war, so who was out there hunting? So,
very true. All righty, in women's college basketball, the Wyoming Cowgirls back in action in the WNIT round of 8. They will host Minnesota tonight in Laramie. The Cowgirls are 18-14 on the year after they drilled South Dakota on Friday in the round of 16, 84-52. UW led 24-13 after one quarter of play and never looked back. They were led in scoring by Allison Ferdig with 24 points and 11 rebounds. The Douglas High School grad was 11 of 14 from the field in that game, and UW as a whole had 5 players in double figures. Minnesota comes into tonight's game with a record of 18-15, but they were a brutal 5-13 in Big Ten Conference play. The Gophers beat Pacific and North Dakota State so far in the WNIT, and tonight's game begins at 6:30 at the Arena Auditorium in Laramie. In women's junior college basketball, the national championship game will be tonight at the Ford Center in Casper as Hutchinson, Kansas will take on Northwest Florida State from Niceville. Hutch is 36-0 and the number 1 seed in the tournament, and Northwest Florida State is the number 3 seed and defending national champions with a record of 30-3. There's a 6 p.m. start tonight from the Ford Center. At the men's NCAA basketball tournament, raise your hand if you had Connecticut, Purdue, Alabama, and North Carolina State in your bracket for the Final Four. Not too many, I think. Back on Saturday, defending national champion UConn boat raced Illinois 77-52 with a 30-0 run in that game. Alabama on Saturday qualified for the Final Four for the first time, beating Clemson 89-82. On Sunday, Purdue, a number 1 seed, got by Tennessee 77-66. Purdue was a number 1 seed last year and lost in the first round to a number 16 seed. This year they were tough thanks to 7'4" Zach Edey, who had 40 points, and outdueled Tennessee big man Dalton Neck, who had 37. Neck, by the way, he played 2 years at Northern Colorado in Greeley and 2 years at Northeastern Junior College in Sterling, Colorado. North Carolina State makes the Final Four for the first time since 1983, beating Duke 76-64. NC State was an 11 seed. They played a combined 9 straight elimination games, counting the ACC and the NCAA tournaments, and won all 9. So the Wolfpack will play Purdue on Saturday in the Final Four, which will be in Glendale, Arizona. Alabama meets UConn in the other national semifinal, and the national championship will be on Monday. Major League Baseball, the Colorado Rockies started out the season 1-3 after a 5-1 loss at Arizona yesterday. The Rockies made 3 errors in that game and led to 2 unearned runs. Colorado is scheduled to play in Chicago against the Cubs today, but that game probably will be postponed due to the weather in the Midwest. And that's it in sports.
Can we reduce the Rockies to like junior varsity high school level?
No, they get paid too much money.
Yeah, but I mean, just so they can play people at their own level.
No. They make enough money to they make enough money to be competitive. Let's put it that way.
Oh, okay, yeah, but they're not.
Right.
Okay. Because
are they getting a reduction in pay?
I don't know. I just want them to play a team that they're actually in league with, and that would be like high school.
Well, I think they would be a really good minor league team.
You really okay? Well, there you go. I mean,
really good.
Just not here in Wyoming.
Well, no, not anywhere. I mean, they should be able to compete at the AAA level.
Yeah. Well, okay. Should be able to.
Should.
You put that in quotes. It sounds like. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that, and then it's open phones next hour of the program. Wake Up Wyoming. Six the time. It's a Monday. It's April 1st. So have at it. Now, it's a good time to prank your friends. Get back with me on how that worked out for you, okay?
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in.
and let's do this thing.
888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOOBS. This happens now and then. I'm ready to do a story, and then I see something or hear something that makes me just hit the brakes and go, wait, whoa, hold on. We have to go to San Francisco. They have figured out how to stop the crime wave in their subway system. Oh, the idea is brilliant because it's San Francisco. Some gentle people there, which is why the subway systems, yes, San Francisco has subways, why the system is such a mess and really dangerous. And they call the system the BART system, which is an acronym. Now, real quick, before I play this for you, story says robberies per passenger per trip are up. Not surprising, right? And violent crime reported ultra high at the BART system, which is the Bay Area. It's an acronym, basically, again, for their subway system. All right, so they decided in San Francisco to go ahead and do something about the rise in violent crime. You don't want to take that subway. You would be safer on the New York subway than the San Francisco subway. So they've decided to have free to you bystander intervention cards. I'm just waiting for your imagination to run wild. What the hell would a bystander intervention card actually be? So you're on the subway and someone starts to harass you. I tell you what I'll do. 2 young college students went down to the subway in San Francisco to get a couple of those cards and explain to everybody how it works.
So this card over here is for when you're being harassed. It says, "You got me." So you'd hand it to somebody else, and it gives them instructions on how they can help you.
If you see someone being harassed, you can also give them this "I Got You" card, which gives them instructions on the back to find the BART police or call someone, or more instructions on how to be safe.
I really appreciate these cards because they gave me a concrete way to deal with an unsafe situation.
Sure.
I'm not very equipped to deal with them on my own.
Apparently
and so
not.
these cards give me a sense of community and a sense of support.
Especially for young college students and for youth, I think these cards are really accessible. It just gives a very easy way to either help someone or to ask for help without having to do much. If everyone has one, then we'll just be able to support each other so much better and feel safer.
Yeah, okay, so this is their solution then in the city of San Francisco. And if you wonder why I say it that way, it's because it's been a while, but every so often we get a call from Dave from San Francisco. And Dave is really snooty because San Francisco is so much better than, and he tries to explain to us why we here in Wyoming need to do it the way they do it there in San Francisco. So that's my snooty voice. Well, okay, so these 2 young ladies, I wonder, were they paid to do that? Because, I mean, can you take it seriously? The idea that if somebody is being harassed, you can hand them a card and it says, "I got you," with some advice about going to the police. Golly. Or if you're being harassed, you can hand somebody a card, "You got me?" In other words, you're going to help me out here? Gosh, I know that's going to do so well. How about this? How about a card, if somebody is harassing you, mugging you, about to murder you, whatever the case is, what if you had a card that you could hand them to tell them that they need to stop it or else? I'm going to tell your mother, or whatever it's going to be. Hand them the card, then wag the finger. How's that? Would that work better? I got a much better idea. If citizens in San Francisco were allowed to be armed, then if somebody is harassing you, all you have to do is just show them that you have a gun. And that ought to stop it. I'm just tossing that out there. Let me see. Bill in Casper. Morning, Glenn. Years ago, a guy I listened to called San Francisco. San Francisco. I think it was more fitting. Dan and Cheyenne, Bay Area Rapid Transit, BART. Yeah, that's it. Basically, the BART system is the Bay Area Rapid Transit System. That's why they call it that. Oh, here's Wyoming in Douglas. My wife's birthday is April 1st. 1 year, I bought donuts and filled them with mayo. Funniest thing ever. Are you still married? I want to go back, if it's okay with you guys, even if it's not because it's my show. I'm going to go back to these young ladies here who are doing this BART thing, Bay Area Rapid Transit. And as they explain, just for a moment, not the whole thing, as they explain how these cards are supposed to work.
Thank you so much. So this card over here is for when you're being harassed. It says, "You got me?"
Yeah.
So you'd hand it to somebody else.
Wait, okay.
And it gives them instructions on how they can help you.
Okay, so what if they say no? Yeah, you're being harassed. You hand the person next to you a card. You got me? What if they hand the card back and go, no, I really don't. Then there's this. Here's someone who's being harassed. You could step up and you get in between them and let whoever's doing harassing know, this person's not alone here. But instead,
if you see someone being harassed, you can also give them this "I got you" card.
I got you. Okay, so what exactly does the card do? She explains it.
Which gives them instructions on the back to find the BART police or call someone, or
they didn't know that.
More instructions on how to be safe.
Yes. Okay. So they didn't know that. All right. You needed to have a card or they wouldn't have known. All right. I like Blue Eyes in Douglas. Are they kidding? What the? Yeah, I agree. Mike, Glenn, can I come by and get some harassment cards? Need a fire starter. I would like to get a harassment card where I'm allowed to harass people. Blue Eyes in Douglas says, how about just kick him between the legs or a punch to the throat? Think that's more forcible than a card. Well, you're not wrong.
Okay, I'm usually not one to brag about expensive trips that I take, but I just got back from the grocery store.
Wake Up Wyoming goes anywhere you do with the Wake Up Wyoming app. Free download for Apple and Android. This is K2 Radio.
8:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, so it is open phones. 888-97-WOODS the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. And you can talk about what I'm talking about or change the subject, fine by me. So if you're just joining me, I played the audio of a couple of young ladies, college students. They're at the San Francisco subway, the BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit. And it's gotten very dangerous down there. So the city's idea is to hand out these little business cards. One, if you're being harassed, hand it to the person next to you. You got me? You're going to help me here? And then there's some advice on it. And the other one, if you see someone being harassed, don't try to jump in. Just hand them a card. I got you, which is basically the card gives them advice to go call the police or something. But all right. And not like the police are going to be around. Dan in Cheyenne says the attacker with a knife can take the card and demonstrate how sharp it is by cutting up the card. I would rather whoever is harassing me or trying to mug me or kill me, I would rather just hand them a card. And the card will explain to them that I have a gun. And then I will show them the gun. How about that idea? Morning, Bob. Bob is in Glen Rock sending me notes, too. And, again, open phones. Let's go to New York City real quick. So, you've seen this, of course. There's an American flag, and one of the stripes is a blue stripe. That means the thin blue line, which is the police department, that thin blue line that protects us. And we've seen what happens when that thin blue line is taken away. When the thin blue line is removed by defund the police, well, chaos ensues. Doesn't work out. The defund the police movement fell apart immediately. And now people are trying to get their police forces back. We'll get a little of this one here. Firefighters, now they have a different kind of flag. Instead of a flag with a thin blue line, they have a thin red line. And they call it the thin red line, meaning the fire department, right? Fire department was ordered by the East Village Ladder Company to remove its red line American flag honoring 6 brothers killed on 9/11 after a neighborhood resident complained it was a fascist flag and questioned if it was politically charged. Well, here's what you do. You don't turn and give in to the person, because this is the city saying, you got to take that down. Tell them no, which is, I hope, what they did. The shocking order came March 22nd after a man claimed he was a staffer for the Democrat Manhattan councilwoman Carla Rivera, confronted firefighters on Ladder 11, sources say. The man pleaded with the East 2nd Street firehouse on a bicycle and told firefighters he worked for Rivera and that the councilwoman was receiving complaints and taking him to the New York City Fire Department as a whole 3 days earlier about the flag, which features a red stripe as a tribute to firefighters killed in the line of duty. Now, if you're wondering, doesn't it already have a red stripe? Well, the flag itself it's basically black and white, but one of the stripes is red, showing that thin red line, right? So he called it a fascist symbol and demanded to know why it was still up. Answer to this is because it's not a fascist symbol. March 19th, email to the fire department, government affairs coordinator. The staffer of the city councilwoman was contacted by the constituent twice about the Ladder Company's flag and asked if it violated department rules. They claimed it was in honor of deceased firefighters. However, the constituent brought up that they could have used the New York City Fire Department flag instead of something that is racially charged, which it isn't. So it's okay to just tell this guy, you're wrong, we're not taking down the flags. But all right. Quote, it's both his and our understanding that private policy symbols aren't permitted to be displayed on public vehicles. Can you confirm if there's any violating flag symbols on Ladder 11? Asked the councilwoman. Hours after the constituent left the firehouse, the deputy police chief visited the firefighters there and reluctantly said the flag must come down because it violated. See, now they're giving it. One guy shows up and complains. One guy shows up and complains. And they have to take it down. Dennis is in Greeley. Hello, Dennis.
Wondering about a little flag etiquette.
Watch the language.
Sorry about that.
I just had to dump you there.
Sorry.
I don't know what the rules for that are, but I do see, again, the police department have the black and white flag with a thin blue line for fallen police officers, and the fire department has a thin red line. If there's any other rules about that, I've never really heard that was bad in any way. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Altering the American flag is not a good thing.
Okay. First I've ever heard of it, but if you can show me the rule, I'll take a look at it. All right, I appreciate it, Des. All right. Now, some people do think that altering it is a bad thing, and other people say, no, it's not. But that's what he thinks, so you tell me what you think. I don't think it is, but you go ahead and tell me. All right. The order sparked immediately outrage. The conservative Instagram influencer, Rogan, something or other, posted a photo of the flag saying New York firefighters were forced to take down the memorial flag. Hours later, the chief reversed the decision, allowing the flag back on. So I'm glad to hear that. To me, to our last caller, with all due respect, I'm okay with the flag. Yeah, I'm okay with it. And I hate the idea that they were forced to take it down in the first place. I would have said no, but then they reversed that decision. Ladder Company 11 still displays the flag. You don't go taking something down because one guy showed up and complained. You don't. Maybe that one guy is wrong. RH in Wiggins, Colorado. Let me see. Hey, Glenn, I thought your Subway card clips were a parody. Wow. We have gotten so dumbed down in this society. I can understand why you thought it was a parody, because I play a lot of parodies. That's one thing. I play a lot of them. But also it's April 1st. But it's not. I haven't done anything today at all that wasn't real. So, okay, the ladder company or the fire department has that flag back up. If you agree with our caller right there that you're not allowed to do, let me know if you're not allowed to do something with a flag. But again, police departments across the country, it's a black and white American flag with a thin blue line. I know many of you have seen it. And the fire department is a black and white American flag with a thin red line. Now, again, to me, I don't have a problem with that, but maybe some people do. Let me know what you think. I am glad that they decided to reverse the decision, and I hope in the future, when one guy shows up and complains, you got to take that down because that's a fascist symbol, that's a political statement. Tell him he's wrong, and we're not going to take it down and send him on his way. Don't give in to one guy who got it wrong. Don't ever do that. Coming up on 8:30, local news coming your way. Right after local news update on the weather forecast, you and I get back into it again with a nice long segment of open phones. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. Wake up, Wyoming. Black and white
not
flag,
a politician.
With a thin red
but his
stripe.
pants are
Like
on
the police
fire.
have a black
Could
and white
someone
flag
grab an
with a
extinguisher?
thin blue line.
Wake up, Wyoming,
To
with
show
Glenn
the thin
Woods.
blue line that keeps us safe, the police department. Well, that thin red line is in honor of fallen firefighters that died in the line of duty. And one guy shows up at a fire department and complains because they have it at the fire department, but also hanging off the back of one of their trucks. So it was taken down temporarily, but then change of heart, they put it back up again and said, never mind, we're not going to. Good. They should have done that in the first place, just never taken it down. Tell the guy, because this guy thought it was some fascist flag and a political statement, and obviously no. Tell him that and tell him we're not taking it down. Don't cave into one guy. So, Tony and Cheyenne, I think all people that hate our flag should have to be set down in a locked room and listen to John Wayne's I Love America. Yeah. Remember the kid, by the way, a different flag, kid in Colorado had on his backpack a Don't Tread on Me flag. And they wanted him to stop wearing that on his backpack because they thought that was a racist flag from the American Revolution. And I'm thinking, hold on, isn't this a high school? Did they not have somebody in the high school? I mean, it doesn't. Actually, I was about to say the history teacher. It doesn't even take the history teacher to know what that flag is. You're in a school. Everybody there, teachers and administrators, should know some history about what the Gadsden flag was. But all right, moving on. Blue Eyes and Douglas. I have no problem with them having that flag up. That represents two groups of people that protect us so we are safe. How dare them worry about that when they give it, and okay, I'm not going to go into the rest of it because it gets us into a different subject, Blue Eyes, but all right. Keith in Cheyenne, politicians usually are the lowest form of humanity, and they cower to a vocal few, which is why, yeah, politicians as well. But also, now it's been a while since I've had to put up with this, but I've been at a few places of business where, well, even radio stations, one person will call the station and complain, and management freaks out. And my answer to that is, you don't freak out because one person called and complained. I mean, seriously, no. Bob in Glenrock, I think the sheep are telling the wolves no. I think, well, no, I shouldn't. Okay. Here's where, honestly, caving in to that vocal minority, no matter what the subject is, should never be anything that's done ever. Or for that matter, again, here we are living in a free country where you're supposed to be allowed to express yourself, even if they are the fire department and they're public employees. I'm okay with some form of expression, especially when this expression is about fallen firemen that died in the line of duty. They started first waving that flag, by the way, on the back of that truck and in the fire hall after 9/11. But the one guy who complained about it, of course, didn't know any history about the flag. That's a fascist flag. That's a political statement. No, it's not. Bye. All right, now I'm going to change subject. You can talk about whatever you want. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Just a reminder, we are living in an apocalypse, right? In case you didn't know, currently we are living in the apocalypse.
So put on your respirator and let's fix that generator. And while we're out, we'll mend our fences too. See, I'm not afraid of dying, just got reasons for surviving. I want one more day in the apocalypse with you.
Of course, that has to do with the whole cult of climate change. And the latest I have on this headline, wind turbines and solar panels are aging prematurely. Now, let's talk about what they mean by prematurely. Because they told us that they're supposed to have a lifespan of a certain number of years. Okay. But they're not living up to that lifespan. I don't look at that as premature. We were told wrong about the lifespan. We were lied to about the lifespan. It's the same when a wind farm is put up. They tell us this wind farm is going to generate this much power, and it never gets anywhere near that because they exaggerated the numbers. So to say, well, this isn't quite this is premature. These wind and solars are falling apart premature. No, it's not premature. That's what the number actually was without the lie. All right. And the claim, the story says, 25-year lifespan of wind turbines has in reality been about 7 to 10 years before having to replace them, the blades or the panels. That has significantly increased the operational cost of wind farms and created huge waste disposal issues that neither the industry nor state regulators were prepared to deal with. For those of you in government in Wyoming, please hear this. As a result, massive wind graveyards had popped up as two gigantic ones on the outskirts of Sweetwater, Texas, as one example. The issue has been exacerbated by the government providing, again, a subsidy plan to wind turbines to be repowered, replacing their blades. Similarly, operations and manufacturers in the solar industry are now, and again, it says premature aging. It's not premature. The number of how long it was supposed to survive was a lie. Many older inverters are failing, and again, about 10 years. Further, most of the manufacturers of these inverters and companies and so on were supposed to maintain them and guarantee their performance over time. Many of them have gone out of business. Energy sold as green is providing, well, the only green involved is all of the money it takes to not just build them, but keep it going. So despite being designed, and we were sold on the idea, up to 25 years lifespan, first and second generation are having about a 10-year lifespan, which means the market will have to repair many of these in the next 10 years that have just been put up. According to projects it talks about the different companies. Residential and commercial and utility scale will approach their benchmark within the next just few years. The power of... Okay, look, they're trying to get these done as fast as possible, put them up as fast as possible. But what they've already put up is already aging out. Now, this, of course, as you can see, is a massive problem for those who think that we are going to go all wind and solar by a certain time. It obviously is not going to happen. It obviously is not. Because they're aging out as they're still trying to build a new generation. Because we were lied to about the numbers from the very beginning. Let's wake up.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. On air, online, and on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS. This is K2 Radio.
8:48's the times. Wake Up Wyoming. Off to the icebox we go to talk to Frank Gambino. So, okay, Frank, there have been some very dangerous creatures in Wyoming's past.
Yes, very big ones, too.
Yes,
T-Rex is the biggest. And T-Rex used to hang out in Lusk, Wyoming, in Niobrara County.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, there was a place, if you head to Grable on Highway 40, you can turn off and go to the dinosaur tracks.
Yes.
Now, first time I saw those, I thought, looks like giant chicken tracks. Well, Wyoming researchers helped discover a giant prehistoric 170-pound chicken from hell.
170-pound chicken.
Yeah, well, that's what they're saying.
Imagine serving those wings at a restaurant.
So great, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't have to order like a plate full of little wings. It'd
be just one big one with buffalo sauce.
That could serve the whole table. Yeah. But no, this was not a chicken, but about 68 million years old. This giant prehistoric bird from hell is what Laramie County Community College is calling it.
Okay.
Just this massive thing. So, and that's pretty good size, 170 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would move around like, picture.
Like a chicken.
Well, like a chicken would, yeah, except it could run a lot faster than, even you.
Than most chickens.
Yeah, right, yeah. So this is yet another species that has been discovered in Wyoming. And I look at it as, I really wonder, is that what I saw in Grable as those tracks?
You know, you might have.
Yeah. Have you ever been there?
Not to the tracks, no.
Okay.
But I have seen in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington the T-Rex skull that they got from Niobrara County.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. In fact, have you been to the museum in Thermopolis?
No.
Go.
Really?
It's worth it, yeah. They have some of the most complete, of all sorts of different sizes, from very tiny to you'll walk in and look up and you'll crick your neck. Your neck will get sore looking up at some of these big things that used to live right in our own backyard.
We could use them now.
Yeah. And in fact, we could. They could clean up some things, except I don't want to have to clean up the poop. I really don't.
No. Let them just chase outlaws and stuff.
That would be fine. But you can even go and watch, while you're there in Thermopolis, behind glass, there's a bunch of workers that are cleaning up the latest finds.
Yeah. With little tiny brushes.
Yeah, so go to Thermopolis, do it.
All right, women's college basketball. The Wyoming Cowgirls in action tonight in the WNIT round of 8. They will host Minnesota this evening at Laramie. Cowgirls are 18-14 on the year after they drilled South Dakota on Friday in the round of 16, 84-52. UW led 24-13 after one quarter of play in that contest and were led in scoring by Allison Fertig with 24 points and 11 rebounds. Douglas High School grad was 11-14 from the field. UW as a whole had 5 players in double figures. Minnesota comes into tonight's game with a record of 18-15 overall, but 5. They were just brutal in Big Ten Conference play, going 5-13. Gophers have beaten Pacific and North Dakota State so far in the WNIT, and tonight's game is at 6:30 at the Arena Auditorium in Laramie. Women's JUCO basketball, the national championship, will be tonight at the Ford Center in Casper as Hutchinson, Kansas will play Northwest Florida State from Niceville. Hutch is 36-0. They're the number 1 seed in the tournament, and Northwest Florida State is the number 3 seed and the defending national champions with a record of 30-3. It'll be a 6 p.m. start tonight from the Ford Center. At the men's NCAA basketball tournament, Connecticut, Purdue, Alabama, and North Carolina State is in the Final Four. Did you have that in your bracket? Back on Saturday, defending national champion UConn boat raced Illinois 77-52 with a 30-0 run in the game. Alabama on Saturday qualified for the Final Four for the first time, beating Clemson 89-82. On Sunday, Purdue, a 1 seed, got by Tennessee 77-66. Purdue was a 1 seed a year ago and lost in the first round to a number 16 seed. That was very embarrassing. But this year, they came ready to play. They have 7-4 Zach Edey, who had 40 points in that game against Tennessee, and outdueled the Volunteers' big man Dalton Neck, who had 37. Neck, by the way, played 2 years at Northern Colorado in Greeley and 2 years at Northeastern Junior College in Sterling, Colorado. North Carolina State makes the Final Four for the first time since 1983. They beat Duke 76-64. NC was an 11 seed and played a combined 9 straight elimination games in the postseason in the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament, and won them all. So the Wolfpack will play Purdue on Saturday in the Final Four in Glendale, Arizona, while Alabama meets UConn in the other national semifinal. Then the national championship game will be a week from today. Major League Baseball, the Colorado Rockies started out the season 1-3 after a 5-1 loss to Arizona yesterday in Phoenix. The Rockies made 3 errors that led to 2 unearned runs. Colorado is scheduled to play in Chicago later on today, but that game probably will be postponed due to the weather. We'll keep an eye on that one.
So you were going to go somewhere today, but I think you got weirded out.
No, I'm going to go Wednesday.
Okay.
I'm going to move my kids to Spearfish, South Dakota. So.
Oh, okay. So, I was about to say, that ought to be a nice trip on Wednesday.
Right. It'll be 65 in Casper and 65 there.
Right.
Imagine that after like today.
Oh, cool. Well, I mean, that's going to be really... But don't come back when the weekend comes, because that's more bad weather.
Yeah, I'll make it a one-day trip and we'll call it good.
Thank you, Frank. Coming up on... I just saw this. I got distracted while talking to Frank. This is a picture of a restaurant where next to a deer mounted up on the wall, they have a vegan mounted up on the wall. Yeah, a vegan. Yeah, that... Okay. Coming up on some local business, it's hysterical, it really is. Coming up on some local business, we have to take care of news time, more open phones, Wake Up Wyoming. Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It is a Monday. It's April 1st, so you're allowed to just rag on your friends and all sorts of ways you probably don't do the rest of the year. But, I mean, being April Fools, go for it.
Today's show is sponsored by the original cell phone hairbrush. Talk about looking good.
It is open phones, 888-97-WOODS, the phone number 888-97-WOODS. Jake is in Casper. Hello, Jake.
Hey, Glenn. Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, you were talking about the wind turbine blades and solar panels. Quote, they're premature on their lifespan, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to call in and fill in some lines. We've been working to recycle wind turbine blades and kind of tell you what some trends of the industry are. And let me be clear before I get started that I'm oil field through and through, and been in it my whole life. So don't pull the trigger on me yet, listeners.
Okay. Go for it.
So one of the things that's happening is that technology is getting better. So they're tearing these down faster because it makes more sense financially to rebuild rather than try and make power off of the old technology. And another thing, NRail down in Colorado has built a blade out of pecans, 100% recyclable, they say. They've done lab testing. I don't know that they've done anything in the field, but that'll be interesting to find out. And last week, there was a news article on a hailstorm, I believe in Texas, that took out the entire farm. Right, and it was acres and acres and acres of these solar panels. It's more than just they're lying to us. But I'd like to point out one last thing. It's going to several trade shows about clean energy, blah, blah, blah. I have never heard one person that's in the industry actually say that we can get rid of oil and gas because they need it. And it's all political. Everyone knows that we need to keep oil and gas and keep, including the people that are in the industry. So, remember, this is a political stunt, nothing to do with the people actually doing it.
Right. What gets me, besides the politicians, the news media gets into it as well, which is one of the reasons. Let me just focus on solar panels for a moment. You cannot make solar panels without petroleum and coal. They're in the panel itself. So if you want to get rid of all of what they call fossil fuels and keep it all in the ground, then you're not going to have solar panels anymore. And the same goes with your electric cars and even parts of wind turbines and so on as far as the petroleum goes. So anyone who says keep it all in the ground is not understanding they want to shut down the very industries that they hope will power America.
Exactly. And then you look at the boneyards of the blades that you're talking about, specifically in Sweetwater. There's actually a company that took all those blades over. They've been paid to get rid of them. I'm not going to mention their name. They've got the bad publicity already. But they had a great idea for recycling, and then it just kind of fell apart. They ran out of money. But there's several others that we've been looking to get into. One of them just got cleaned up by another company in Slayton, Texas, but there's one over in Nebraska that we're trying to get our hands on. But they tell us, we need to get all this cleaned up before the end of the year. Well, the year passed, and they aren't doing anything. So about a month ago, the person that owns the blades and took them over from the farm owner says, well, the landowner's okay with it. The people around town aren't crying about it or anything, and neither are the original equipment manufacturer. So we're just going to let those sit for a while. So it all depends on public's outlook on it and how much people are going to complain about it. And then you don't see the politicians other than on the conservative side even saying anything about these boneyards that are out there.
Well, and speaking of bone, you mentioned Texas a while ago. One of the biggest wind turbine blade boneyards is in Texas. It's massive, and so far, a lot of promises to do something with those blades, but nothing has happened yet. They just keep stacking up. So here, once again, what we're told is not what's happening in the industry. That's part of my concern.
It is. It's a huge concern, and it's all political. And even a lot of the conservatives are starting to jump on that bandwagon to, appease other people and their constituents to get more votes. And then as soon as they get elected, you quit hearing about it other than rhetoric,
Yeah. All right, Jack. Thanks for the call. I appreciate the information since you're working in the industry yourselves. Over we go to Jack in Colorado. Morning, Jack.
Glenn, I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I'm glad that you brought up this windmill thing.
Yeah.
Even a liberal idiot like, what's his name, who did all the movies? I can't think of his name right now. He went against the windmills. And your last caller was pretty good because he's in the industry. But I think it's good that you're bringing it to people's awareness, the futility of these things. But what I'm not hearing from you, and what is key to this thing, is what to do about it. And I'd like to speak to what to do about it.
Okay.
And you keep saying we're lied to. We're not lied to. When you're lied to and huge amounts of money is invested based on that lie, you have a legal remedy in the courts. It's called fraud in the inducement. That's that's an actionable thing that people can be sued for. Now you have to identify whether it's which department of the government it is that pushed this forward and who handed the lie over in order to get the funding. That's where it needs to be stopped. They need to be sued for fraud in the inducement because they knew it's fraud, and they all know it's fraud. And when, that Texas millionaire down in Texas ordered 500 of them, then he canceled them all about 15 years ago because he saw Michael Moore was the one I was talking about earlier, who saw the futility in these things. They're a disaster. The whole thing's a disaster. But making the public tax dollars pay for this stuff is a fraud. It's a major fraud, and it needs to be brought to the courts. That's the remedy.
Okay, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. And I don't think he's wrong about that as far as where to take it to the courts. I'll tell you a few things, if you're still listening out there, some of the other things I want to take to the courts. A few years ago, I don't know if the commercial's still out there or not, but there was a commercial, and I think it was run by the EPA. But they showed a coal power plant. And, of course, they had to shoot it in such a way that the sun was on the other side of the steam coming out of the stack. They used to be smokestacks. I now call them steam stacks because that's mostly steam coming out of there, right? But if you shoot it with the sun on the other side of that steam, it looks black. And then they artificially colored the sky yellow. And they put a baby carriage out in front of the coal power plant. And you hear this horrific, sad, creepy music. And you hear from the baby crib, and they talk about asthma and filthy air. And so, whoever put out that commercial needs to be sued for fraud. If you go to China, it's like that, but China doesn't filter anything. They just throw raw coal in and just let it go. But that's not what's happening here in America. They need to be sued. But, yeah, there's a couple of other things. I have talked about the solutions for this, but the solution to me is a much shorter answer. I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it, but it goes like this. We turn the energy industry back over to the free market. I mean, just immediately turn it back over to the free market, which is what we're supposed to be in this country. When our governor here in Wyoming says we need an all-of-the-above approach to energy, no, we need a free market. Get the government out of it. Get government out of energy. The only thing government should be doing in energy is making sure that we, the consumers, are not getting ripped off, and that the people who produce the energy are actually doing it in a clean and safe way. And when I say clean, CO2 is not a pollutant, so don't worry about that. Now, the next part of that is, I think the lawsuits are a good way to go, but also a massive education campaign, because we have spent so much time hearing this nonsense about CO2 from the politicians and the news media and Hollywood. Okay, so we are fighting back, but it's much more difficult to get the word out there from where we're coming from, because they have all the news media and they control most of the social media websites, and they're in the schools, in our public schools and in our universities, teaching this nonsense. So there's a lot to fight back against. But education is a big part of it. I want a clean environment like anybody else, but I also know that CO2 is not a pollutant, and we're not in a climate crisis. I-80 John over in Granite Canyon. Morning, Glenn. They are constantly repairing wind turbines at the wind farm near you? Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times I drive by wind farms, and a good number of them aren't even turning. 9:17, wake up.
You asked for an expert. We didn't have the budget for that. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays 6 to 10 a.m. and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
You guys are going to love this one. Oh, you're going to love this. I just got done talking to Josh, who is the owner of Tri-County Mercantile in Chugwater, Wyoming. So I put a story up this morning because I was there on Thursday. And while I'm talking to him at the front counter, I notice there is a few things off right next to the register. There's a little jar that has nail clippers in it, right? You want to buy a nail clipper? Right there. Need some chapstick. Right in front of the jar, some chapstick laid out. Buy some chapstick. Also, there's a box. Just a cardboard rectangle box. Filled, just jam-packed with 9mm bullets. And a little sign that he wrote with a marker, 9mm by the bullet. So if you had just shot something or someone out front and you need to come in and reload that one bullet, you can go. Just pick one out right there while you're at it. I thought it was a great idea as a sales technique. What if you show up and he's selling them for like, what was it, Josh, 30 cents a bullet? Something like that. I thought this was great. If you want to just go ahead and grab a fistful of 9mm bullets, put it in your pocket and just pay him for it, go ahead. Now, that's Wyoming for you. There are other states where, oh, my God, what would happen if he did something like that in those other states? But here in Wyoming, hey, people walk in packing on their hip, open carry, sometimes concealed, but there's the gun. And they'll walk right over and go, oh, cool, bullets, and they'll buy a few right there. So I wrote the story up, and I put it out there. Josh saw it and tried to share it on Facebook. And he sent me a note and a screen grab of what happened, because Facebook is not happy, because there's 9mm bullets for sale. And so Facebook is flagging us. Oh, dear Lord. So apparently we made Facebook mad. So in order to get this passed, now realize there's not anybody there for the Facebook algorithm. It's a computer program. They programmed it to look for certain things. And so it doesn't get past the programming, basically. So Josh made a few changes. He, in the picture and also the title of the article, he crossed out the word sale, for example, or just, blotted it out with a marker. He had to change a few things to get it past the Facebook censors. But yeah, it's just a simple story about something that is actually true here in the state of Wyoming, that you could walk into in Chugwater, Wyoming, the Tri-County Mercantile, and while you're there, pick up some chapstick and go ahead and if you own a 9mm or know someone who does, makes a great stocking stuffer. Just reach your hand in there and just grab some of those bullets and count up. Yeah, I grabbed 5 here. Pay him for it, and there you go. It's that easy in a state like Wyoming, whether Facebook likes it or not. All right, couple of other things in our state. No special session. Wyoming legislators narrowly had a special session going, but it didn't work out. So they have to have a certain number of people calling for a special session in the Wyoming House and Senate, and they just fell short of the number to call a special session to override the governor's vetoes. And there was also a bit of a talk about what special session they would have for. I mean, would it be over one issue or a series of things that the governor vetoed? That was part of the downfall there. Micah is in Cheyenne. Hello, Micah.
Good morning.
Morning.
So last week, y'all were having technical difficulties, so I couldn't get through. But that Greg guy has got to realize that everything that happened with this special session of interest was going by protocol.
Yeah.
What was being followed up on are all things that, even within our Constitution, so contrary to what he was saying, allows us the right to challenge these things. And we went by the book on how you do that. So if Greg's got a problem with that, then maybe he ought to go back to some courses about constitutions and individual rights and county rights and everybody else's rights. So, for him to call and then to even waste time discussing it with him, I would have.
The reason why sometimes,
hung up.
Whether I don't like to hang up if someone is actually being patient, because there's Dave in San Francisco that I hang up on. Josh will actually try to have a conversation with me, but here's where I kept cornering him. And sometimes, Micah, I have conversations like that, not for, let's say, Josh's benefit, but for everybody else listening. Because I kept asking him, well, he thinks it's unconstitutional, and so does the governor. But there's other people in the House and Senate who disagree. So what do we do about that if we have that disagreement? And what he couldn't seem to figure out is what you just said. First off, we have a process for that. Second, we have courts to help settle these things. But he couldn't seem to get past, if we have a disagreement on what is or isn't constitutional, we have a process for that. And Josh, I'm sorry, I said Josh. Greg just couldn't seem to figure that out.
I know, but it was just so frustrating because, he just goes on. And, for the people who do not realize that, they're listening to what he says. And if that fits their agenda, that's what they really hang on to.
Yeah, well.
So instead of letting him just give his opinion, cut it down, and then...
See, I want him to give his opinion so I can... I want him to give his opinion so I can show everybody why he's wrong. It's an educational opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to run to news time.
Do that in two parts.
All right. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Greg did irritate a lot of people last week.
Where Wyoming comes to talk. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS.
Some of the comments I'm getting over the Wake Up Wyoming app, which, by the way, besides calling the show, like Micah just did, you can go ahead and text the show. Download the Wake Up Wyoming app for free. And then one of the options is the chat option. So you can send me text messages and pictures and links and so on while I'm on the air. Let me see. Chet and Yoder, is March Madness over? I have no idea, but I'll ask Frank when we get to the top of the hour. Mike in Wheatland, why the hell is the state... Did I get that right, Mike? Why the hell... I'm trying to emphasize for your sake, right? Is the state legislature adjourning prior to the governor's signature or vetoes of laws sent to him in the first place? I wanted to know that. And when I had asked the question, there were some members of the House of Representatives that told me, well, we adjourned like 3 days early. But then I got a call from another member of the House that said, no, he didn't. Well, okay. I'll let those guys settle that issue and get back to me. But I even said earlier this morning, I don't think they really should until everything is signed. Maybe put a deadline for the governor that you got to get these bills signed or not or whatever by this date. Morning, Grandpa Rich. He's in Thermopolis, Wyoming. And just, Micah, so you know, to me, since it's my show, the purpose of the show, I made the rules. If you're a jerk, you're gone. If you call the show, you're a jerk, you're gone. I'll hang up on you. That's why I hang up on Dave from San Francisco. However, when someone calls that I really disagree with, but if the person is a decent person who, although we have a hardcore disagreement, they're not being a jerk. That's the purpose of this show. To have that conversation. Okay, I'm about having an open conversation, not hanging up on someone just because I disagree with them. I want to get calls from people I disagree with. That's the whole point here. Just don't be a jerk about it. That's all. That's it. 2 rules. Don't be a jerk. Don't be vulgar. Other than that, we can talk about pretty much anything. All right. I do like the article from Cowboy State Daily this weekend. Squatters don't make much trouble here in Wyoming because we won't put up with it. Now, squatters have been a big problem around the country because there's some cities out there that have passed ordinances that if somebody moves into your home, completely uninvited, you go grocery shopping, you come back, someone's in your house. I live here now. You call the cops. They claim they have a lease, but they don't. The cops will side with them. They're more apt to arrest you than them. It's insane. It really is just insane. Rules a bit different here in Wyoming. Doesn't work that way. Landlords, it might take them a month or 2 to get rid of somebody, but Los Angeles woman was sentenced last week to 240 months in federal prison in order to pay $3.9 million in restitution after occupying a dead man's home, dismembering his body and stealing money from his bank account. Washington State squatter barred his landlord from his own $2 million home after refusing to pay rent for 2 years. Lots of scandals out there. The law in Wyoming, especially compared to other states, we are quite different. The law isn't hyper-restrictive about how landlord evicts people. You still have to go to court, but you can probably get them out in a month or two. Because they just want to make sure that they're, doing the right thing. Foreclosures and things like that. But, yeah, you can get them out pretty quick, where in other states, oh, no, you've lost your place. I do like, though, there's a guy, you might have seen him on television if you're watching the right shows, and I like this guy. This is a brilliant plan. This is Yankee ingenuity for you. This guy started a business using the idiotic squatters' laws against the squatter. So let's say you are living in another state, God help you, and you go on vacation for a week. You come back, there's some squatter in your house, and you can't get rid of him legally. Okay, call this guy. For a fee, and it's not outrageous, he will show up with some of his friends, and they will squat in the house with the squatter. And they will be annoying in the worst possible way. So annoying, in some cases, the squatter has left within 2 hours. So they out-squat the squatter using the very exact rules and laws that were put in place to help the squatter take over your house. They just use it against them. And once the squatter is left, the guy turns the house back over to you. What a brilliant idea for a business. And he actually is doing this as a business around the country. I have to admire people like this. I mean, I really do. This is what capitalism is. There is a need somewhere. And somebody comes up with an idea to fulfill that need, to fix the problem in his case. And since the politicians weren't going to do anything, the police, their hands are tied. The lawyers and judges can't really help you. Their hands are tied because of these idiotic laws. Well, okay. The guy's just going to work within the laws to solve the problem. Brilliant. Let's wake up, Wyoming.
He's talking to himself in a padded room, and you could be the voice in his head. Join the conversation on Wake Up Wyoming, 866-97-WOODS.
Coming up at 9:48, Wake Up Wyoming, off to the icebox we go. Frank Gambino waiting by. First off, got a question from Chet in Yoder. Is March Madness over?
No.
Okay, but we're out of March.
In Wyoming, it almost is.
Okay.
Well, they have one junior college national championship game tonight.
Right.
In Casper.
Okay.
Then once that's over, March Madness is over in Wyoming.
Okay.
Now they have two more. They have the end of the women's tournament, and the end of the NCAA men's tournament.
Right.
Next week.
Okay.
Or starting at the end of this week.
Now, on April 6th, if you want to cover a real man's sporting event, and for that matter, Wyoming women just love this, monster trucks at the Ford Wyoming Center.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, some years ago, I was watching monster truck commercials, came on television, right? And also listening to monster truck radio commercials. And I always thought, oh, man, I hate those. They just sound so stupid, you know. Sunday. And
the U.S. 30 drive with the great runs, right.
So then one day while I'm at work, the boss comes in and says, hey, need you to record this. And it's not just going to be on radio. It's going to be on the local TV stations.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do this. He goes, I want you to be really creative. I mean, put everything into, you know what those commercials sound like? I found out, Frank, those commercials are so fun to make.
Oh, they are, really?
Oh, my Lord, yeah. I get to do that big Sunday voice, and all of the big sound effects in the background and so on. So
it's not like, hey, look at that one with the big tires.
Oh, look at him go. No, it's not like that at all, Frank. Not at all. So Dirt Crew is going to be there. That's a big dump truck kind of a truck.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, another one used to be Kermit, but they changed the name, so it's not Kermit anymore. It's Tailgater.
Oh,
and in this one, these people are from Laramie, and their truck has a Mohawk, and it's called Maximus.
Maximus.
Maximus something or other.
Laramie.
I mean, like a Roman thing. So like a Roman helmet with the mohawk on the helmet.
Excellent.
That's what it looks like, yeah. But these guys are actually professional monster truckers, if that's what you call these.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and they're from Laramie. So if you really want to cover a sporting event, I know that you're going to come back on Monday deaf.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But you know what? I get a kick out of it. You know, I did a video for a monster truck show in Deadwood, and there were a couple of teams from Laramie that were in that too.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well,
it was like two brothers or something like that were running the thing.
So here's a couple of things. If you go to the Wake Up Wyoming site, and I know Miss Mary will alert it out too, but anyway, your local radio station sites, as well with Town Square Media, there's an opportunity to get yourself some tickets there.
Ooh.
Yeah, pick up some to see that. But also on the story that I wrote up, I put videos of the three trucks I just mentioned, and it is a lot of fun, but it never does them justice because it's not loud enough.
Well, no, you know that is the sound that you'll hear if you go.
I can go ahead and turn up the speakers in the studio.
That's nothing.
No, not at all. Because apparently you feel this stuff in your chest as they go by. Now,
it's the feeling of power.
The fact that they're doing it inside just adds to it,
You betcha. Women's college hoops, the Wyoming Cowgirls in action tonight in Laramie in the round of 8 at the WNIT. They will host Minnesota this evening, and the Cowgirls are 18-14 after they drilled South Dakota on Friday in the round of 16 of the WNIT, 84-52. UW led 24-13 after one quarter of play and were led scoring by Allison Furtick. She had 24 points and 11 rebounds on 11 of 14 from the field. UW as a whole shot the ball great. They had 5 players in double figures. Minnesota comes into tonight's game with a record of 18-15. They were 5-13. 5-13 in Big Ten Conference play. Gophers have beaten Pacific and North Dakota State so far in this tournament. There'll be a 6:30 start from the AA in Laramie. Women's junior college basketball, the national championship game will be tonight at the Ford Center in Casper as Hutchinson, Kansas will take on Northwest Florida State from Niceville. Hutch is 36-0 and the number 1 seed in the tournament, and Northwest Florida State is the number 3 seed and the defending national champions with a record of 30-3. That's a 6 p.m. start from the Ford Center. In the men's NCAA basketball tournament, raise your hand if you had Connecticut, Purdue, Alabama, and North Carolina State in your bracket for the Final Four. Back on Saturday, defending national champion UConn just ran over Illinois 77-52 with a 30-0 run in the game. Alabama on Saturday qualified for the Final Four for the first time. They beat Clemson 89-82. On Sunday, Purdue, a number 1 seed, got by Tennessee 77-66. Purdue was a number 1 seed last year and lost in the first round to the number 16 seed, Farley Dickinson. That was embarrassing. This year, they were tough thanks to 7'4" Zach Edey, who had 40 points and outdueled Tennessee big man Dalton Neck, who had 37. He, by the way, played 2 years in Northern Colorado and Greeley and 2 years at Northeastern Junior College in Sterling. North Carolina State makes the Final Four for the first time since 1983. They beat Duke 76-64. NC State was an 11 seed. They played a combined 9 straight elimination games in the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament and won them all. So the Wolfpack plays Purdue on Saturday in the Final Four in Glendale, Arizona, while Alabama plays UConn in the other national semifinal, and that will be on Saturday. The national championship will be on Sunday. Big League Baseball, the Colorado Rockies lost 3 out of 4 to start the season at Arizona. They lost 5-1 to the Diamondbacks yesterday. The Rockies made 3 errors in that game, led to 2 earned runs. They're scheduled to play in Chicago against the Cubs, but the weather isn't very good there today, so we'll see if they play that at all. That's it. Sports.
You know, I keep thinking that I ought to go back because I did one time came up with a bunch of jokes for the Colorado Rockies. But I thought if I start telling them now, I'm going to run out of jokes by the end of the season.
No, you'll need 162 of them.
Yeah.
So why don't you just kind of do one or two a week?
Right.
You know, maybe like on Fridays or something, we can, go over the week and say, how much of a joke were they?
Right, yeah. They were so bad. Or
there's some weeks that they'd have been good. Like, hey.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Not on a consistent basis.
But